Modern men move through the world like ghosts. They're physically present, but existentially invisible. They scroll through their days, game through the nights, and work themselves to the bone while their inner loneliness grows. If you're a man who's been feeling existentially disoriented or full of intense energy with absolutely nowhere to direct it, you're not failing. You're just caught up in a structural trap. The crisis we see today is not a personal failure of discipline. It is the natural consequence of a hidden civilizational machinery designed to manufacture male isolation. Now, I'm clearly not a man, but as a former university professor with an Ivy League PhD who taught theories of gender and sexuality, I spent years researching and seeing firsthand how modern men are starving for true direction, purpose, and heroism. I was raised under strict masculine values to work hard, bottle up emotions, endure, and just keep working. I know the exact weight of the societal script you've been handed. We need to look at this architecture clearly before it becomes a crisis of epic proportions. The fundamental core masculine values haven't changed, but the system surrounding them has. The real question is how those values can survive in a modern context that treats masculine vitality as a liability. For most of human history, a man's identity was tied to an undeniable significance. Their ancestors built empires. They faced immense danger and anchored communities because they were fundamentally necessary. Today, men have freedom, comfort, and endless entertainment. But what they do not have is direction. They don't know what their strength is for. And that is the key. Human beings, men, can survive astonishing amounts of hardship if it serves a meaningful outcome. As Nietzsche famously observed, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. What crushes modern men is not suffering, it's structural aimlessness. And the architecture of this trap begins with the systemic elimination of male necessity. The architecture of this crisis begins with a simple, devastating reality. Modern civilization has systemically eliminated the necessity of men. For the vast majority of human history, a man's psychological survival was anchored by utility. His identity was structurally tied to a role, a mission, a community, a family, a craft, and a specific place in the world. When a culture strips away a man's functional utility, it doesn't eliminate his energy, but it eliminates his coordinate plane. He's left with maximum material comfort, but zero directional focus. This structural vacuum became clear to me during my time in academia. Years ago, an exceptionally intelligent, capable, and industrious student came to my university office hours. He sat across from me, completely defeated by an invisible exhaustion. He looked up and said, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. He was not asking which career track to choose or which academic major to declare. What he lacked was not information. What he lacked was a target. While existential confusion is common among young adults of any gender, this specific brand of paralysis was a repeating pattern, occurring with alarming frequency among my male students. The underlying reality is that the deep evolutionary impulse towards heroism has been completely divorced from modern utility. And what I mean is not heroism in a superficial, fictional, Marvel sense. It is the archetypal drive to become an individual you yourself respect, to serve an objective larger than yourself, to confront volatility, and to anchor a community. That psychological drive cannot be erased. It can only be displaced. When the traditional containers for masculine strength disappear, the energy simply gets redirected into simulations, virtual battlegrounds, online arguments, superficial status seeking, and endless hyper-fixated personal optimization. The momentum remains, but the infrastructure is gone. And what is ultimately this misdirected heroic instinct? Modern culture has convinced the masses that heroism is an extraordinary anomaly, a state reserved strictly for historical figures or media caricatures. But that is a profound misunderstanding. Heroism is simply the moment reality asks something difficult of you and you answer. It is keeping your word when it's inconvenient, taking responsibility when avoidance is easier, protecting what is vulnerable, building what will outlast your lifetime, and choosing duty over comfort when no one is watching. Manhood is not cosmetic posture. It is a functional role you grow into when reality issues a challenge and you answer again and again. That is the exact mechanism by which real character is constructed. Purpose is located and identity is solidified. The fundamental tragedy of modern life is not that men have lost their inherent strength. It's that they no longer have an arena to direct it toward. The desire to serve something greater remains fully intact. What is missing is a clear, meaningful target. The second structural design flaw of modern civilization is the complete removal of authentic role models. Historically, masculine development was never a product of theoretical instruction. A boy did not become a man by reading slogans or by digesting digital content or by optimizing his physical metrics. Masculinity was absorbed by observing men showing up for what mattered. It was witnessed in a father rising at dawn to provide for his household, an uncle honoring a contract when it was economically inconvenient, a grandfather repairing an object rather than discarding it. It was a coach encouraging you to try again, or a teacher refusing to settle for mediocrity because he recognized your potential. Masculinity was never taught explicitly. It was integrated through proximity to lived examples. Young men understood the parameters of manhood because they spent time in the presence of men they genuinely respected. Today, a generation of boys grows up surrounded by hyper-stimulating screens, but completely starved of organic human examples. The primary subjects available for imitation are influencers, digital celebrities, and content creators. The vast majority of young men have never spent meaningful, unmediated time around an elder they want to become. This structural absence changes the entire developmental equation. Masculine psychology does not mature through the acquisition of raw information. It matures through lived, synchronous experience. It requires sitting at tables with other men, listening to the oral histories of elders, and engaging in collective physical labor. A boy must witness courage, responsibility, discipline, and purpose in action, manifested in the trivial daily routines of real life. Without these living reference points, young men are left to construct an identity out of hyper-real digital fragments. And when an identity is built out of fragments, existential loneliness becomes a structural certainty. Directly linked to this starvation of examples is the total collapse of apprenticeship. Modern civilization operates on an emergency mandate of hyper-acceleration. Rewards must be instant, capital must be generated fast, and personal transformation must occur overnight. But everything structurally worthwhile requires slow growth. The honing of a craft, the conditioning of a mind, and the strengthening of a body are multi-year investments. Learning to honor a word, shoulder a burden, lead a community, and endure systemic discomfort without escaping into a simulation. These milestones require the architecture of time. All the individuals, all the men we admire did not materialize overnight. Their professional competence and psychological resilience were earned through continuous trial and error. They earned trust and respect through repeated private sacrifices. True masculinity is an ongoing ordeal of devotion, boundary setting, and accountability. This is the precise lesson that organic role models transmit through their presence. In their absence, the vacuum gets filled by a predatory class of internet gurus and digital influencers who trade superficial validation for algorithmic status, leaving the modern male psyche stranded in a perpetual simulation of maturity. The third core challenge of our time is that we have entirely dismantled our rites of passage. For the vast majority of human history, a boy did not simply wake up one day and magically found himself a man. Manhood was something earned through a visible crucible. There were deliberate tests, community responsibilities, and specific moments that demanded more from him. Moments that forced his soul and his capacity to expand. Today, a young man transitions from childhood to adulthood without a single clear line being crossed. No one asks anything of him, no one challenges his capacity, and no one calls him forward into significance. The natural consequence is that we see an epidemic of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, even 50-year-olds who still think and behave like teenagers. And that is a profound tragedy for the human spirit because challenge shapes character, responsibility shapes character, difficulty shapes character. A man cannot discover the true depth of who he is by staying comfortable. He only discovers his nature by confronting the raw edges of reality, by taking necessary risks, by choosing the difficult path, and by making the inconvenient choice when an easier exit is right in front of him. He finds himself by willingly taking on responsibilities that feel much bigger than he currently is. Modern society relentlessly commands man to seek convenience, comfort, and safety. But comfort has never been the path to maturity. Challenges. And that's why so many modern men live far below their potential. They're waiting for a transformation that costs them nothing. They want resurrection without crucifixion. And if men are to truly remember who they are at their core, they must first stop looking for validation from the very systems designed to keep them passive. The internet gurus cannot save you. Optimization protocols cannot save you. A cage does not become a home just because it's hyper efficient. Your energy is not gone, it is simply unanchored. The antidote to a life lived like a ghost is not more information. It's weight. It's finding the responsibility you've been avoiding in your immediate everyday reality, standing up under it, and refusing to look away. These are the exact coordinates where the hero is born. Not in an extraordinary fictional world, but right here in the quiet wreckage of this one. Hey, thank you for watching. If what I'm sharing resonates with you, make sure you hit subscribe to be notified when new videos are released. And if you want to go deeper, I share longer reflections, frameworks, and updates in my newsletter. The link is below. This channel is a growing body of work about restoring aliveness in a world that quietly trains you to live at a distance from your own life.